Hi, it's Jan Beta, and I'm going to attempt to burn a new kernel ROM for my dad's C64 that I used during my childhood on this actual Commodore 64. So let's see how that goes. In the previous episode, I carefully refurbished this a bit, did some future-proofing, like replacing all the capacitors in here and putting some heat sinks on the chips. This is one of the Commodore 64s that my dad owned back in the day, and one of the 64s. I think he probably had two, but it's not quite clear. My memory is a bit fading, but this was one that he owned and passed down to my sister, who used it for some years. And now it is back in my possession because thankfully my sister held onto it for all these years and gave it to me a few years ago when I started getting into retro computer stuff. So this is a family Commodore 64 that's been in the family since the 1980s, and I am very fond of it, so I only did very careful refurbishing on this. I'm not going to try to erase any of the writing that my father actually did on this and things like that. This has a kernel switcher in it with DolphinDOS mostly on it, and a slightly turned down version of DolphinDOS, and something that is called HyperCent Basic, which I think is based on HyperLoad, a very basic fast loader. It's not very fast and not very compatible, and I don't really need that ROM. So I teased in the previous episode that I wanted to try to burn a new ROM for that, and that's what we're going to try today. And I have two EPROM burners for the Commodore 64. This is a DELA EPROMMER 2, DELA EPROMMER 2. That is actually the one that my father used to burn the EPROMs that are in here, I suppose. He might have had two of these or two different models, but this is the one from his stash that actually survived over all these years. I don't know if this still works. We're going to find out. And then I have another one that Eve donated to me quite a few years back, and I didn't find a good opportunity to show this in a video. This is a Merlin EPROM programmer PP64, Merlin EPROM programmer, also German product, I believe. And this is a much more sophisticated one than this one. Yeah, we're going to try both of these, but first of all, I want to address a problem that I encountered in the previous episode, and that is there was not enough room to put a heatsink on the SID chip. All the other chips that get notoriously hot in the C64 got heatsinks, but the SID, there was not enough room between the kernel switcher and the SID actually to put a proper heatsink in there. So I'm going to try that as the first step, and then we're going to look into making a new EPROM for this. Yeah, this might be a bit more trivial than I thought, actually. I might just be able to put another socket between the kernel switcher and the SID and raise it up slightly, and probably I'm going to have enough room for a heatsink then. But we'll see. I didn't think of that in the previous episode. So this is our kernel switcher PCB with 4 different ROMs. This is the original ROM, this is the mask ROM that was originally in this kernel socket, and then we have DolphinDOS and the light version of DolphinDOS and the HyperCent thing. And yeah, I'm just going to unplug this, and this is where our SID is located. And yeah, of course, there's not a lot of room between the circuit board and the SID when it's in place. So we're going to try to put another socket in here, I think, and see if we can fit a heatsink on this. So I got out my heatsinks, and this is a heatsink for a 28-pin chip, which the SID is. And yeah, these are relatively flat, as you can see. So that goes on here. And then I have a 24-pin dip socket that fits in here. Let's see if we can fit our circuit board on that with the heatsink in place. Yeah, there's a bit of clearance now. Okay, so this is just going to work. Yeah. That still works. Nice. And it feels a bit more stable as well. This is the DOS HyperCent Basic. This is the first generation SID chip, by the way. It doesn't have any revision number. I think there are also first revisions that have an R1, but this is just a 6581 without anything. So yeah, just going to put my heatsink on here. And yeah, I'm going to have to let this cure for a while. Yeah, but I'm super happy that this was such an easy workaround. And the case still closes up because there's a lot of clearance here, of course. I kind of want to put a bit of a spacer in between there. These are self-adhesive rubber feet, 3M. Going to put one around here. And this should sit on the SID. And stabilize the whole thing. Yeah. Nice. Okay, so I'm satisfied with that solution, I think, for now. Now for the EPROM programming, I'm of course going to try to use primarily the EPROM programmer that my dad used back in the day, because it's such a good match for this machine. This machine was probably used in conjunction with this exact EPROM programmer to program the ROMs that are in here. So yeah, kind of a good fit. And I'm going to cheat a tiny little bit because I'm going to use my 1541 Ultimate to load the software for the EPROM programmer. I'm not going to use a real disk drive, I think, because it's just more convenient. And I'm also going to use the internet, which of course didn't exist back in the day, to download a ROM and a modern computer, or more modern computer than this, to modify the ROM slightly, because we need to do that. We're going to look into that in a second. First of all, we need an EPROM, 8 kilobytes, because the kernel ROM is 8 kilobytes in the Commodore 64. And that's a 2764 EPROM, some type of it. And I have a couple that I can try. So let's see if we can program them with this EPROM programmer. Should be period correct. So this is an STM27C64A, which should be compatible with this old EPROM programmer. It uses a 12.5 volts programming voltage, and it should be programmable on this old EPROM programmer. And also on the Merlin EPROMMER. This even supports a few more EPROM types. This also supports larger EPROMs like the 27512. This only goes up to the 27265. But that's enough for this purpose. The 27C64 8K EPROM, the 27C128 is 16K EPROM, 256, 32K, and 512 is a 64K EPROM. So for this purpose, we only need this one, and the DELA EPROMMER is compatible with these, hopefully. So let's prepare our ROM that we actually want to put in there. And I'm going to use a JiffyDOS ROM, because JiffyDOS is more useful these days than that strange, obscure HyperCent ROM that was in there. I'm going to use a JiffyDOS ROM that uses the DolphinDOS key, function key things and the DolphinDOS routines, except for the fast loader routines. That's a cross between JiffyDOS and DolphinDOS. I've used this in quite a number of machines. It's relatively easy to make this ROM. You just need to buy a JiffyDOS ROM file, which is still available for sale. I'm going to put some links in the video description about where to get that. And I'm also going to put a link to the little patch routine that you have to run to make it the JiffyDolphin ROM that I'm going to use here. So, however, you can't just download a ROM from the internet and put it on an EPROM with an old EPROM programmer. You can use these with a modern EPROM programmer like the TL866, which is what I would usually do. But the old style EPROM programmers that you would use in a C64, as far as my research goes, want these files to have 2 extra bytes at the beginning of the file to indicate the start address of the file. So we need to add 2 bytes to this file at the beginning to make it usable in an old school EPROM programmer. I'm going to do that using a hex editor, which was not easy to find one that can actually do that. I usually use ghex on Linux, which cannot add, it can just change things, ghex. And then I found bin-add, that is another hex editor and can also do binary editing, and that can actually add 2 bytes to this file. I think we're going to see. I'm just going to open the file. Okay, opening our Dolphin Jiffy file. Insert data is what we want to do. And I want to insert 2 bytes. So this shall be empty. So we're just adding 2 bytes of zeros to the start of this file. That should do it. Okay, so we should save this. There we are. So technically, this should be that. Let's see if we can do something with it on the C64. I'm doing this for the first time, so I'm not sure where this is going to go. But we're going to figure it out. So I'm now just going to put the USB stick into the 1541 Ultimate. Yeah, I think we need to put this file on a disk image and things like that, which is relatively easy to do with the 1541 Ultimate. And then, of course, we need to hook up the EPROM programmer as well, which plugs into the user port. There we are. LED lights up. That's a good sign, I guess. I think we can just move things around here. Commodore copy. Yeah. I'm copying this file into a disk file, basically. And now we have it on our disk file, which I'm going to mount. There we are. JD 2 bytes. It's a 33 blocks file, which should be exactly what we need. So I'm going to start the EPROMMER 2 software. And you're not supposed to put the EPROM in while starting the software. Yeah, so there we go. This is the German version, of course, the original version. There is also a translation of this available. I am going to link that in the video description, but I wanted to use the original version that my father probably used. So I'm going to put the EPROM in, I guess. So the EPROM goes in here like so, with the little slot facing left. So let's do the blank check, which is the first menu item, Leertest. We have a 2764. Okay, seems to be all right. Let's try and program the EPROM. So, menu 2. Menu 2, and then you can load the program. We can also just show the directory. JD 2 bytes is the one we want. And we can load it to address hexadecimal 1000. That's what I'm going to do, because it doesn't matter. JD 2 bytes. And we can do program EPROM 2764. Put it in 12 volt programming mode, normal mode. And now we enter 1000, because that's where we just put our ROM that we want to burn on the EPROM. And yeah, we can just push return for programming the whole EPROM, which is what we're going to do. And now it might already be programming. Yeah, LED is lighting up. And yeah, it's going to take a while because this is a slow programmer, of course. Not nearly as fast as the TL866. Going to take a couple of minutes, I guess. But we're programming an EPROM on the C64. And you can maybe see the LED lighting up there. That's the indication for there being voltage on the EPROM socket. Yeah, that definitely takes a while, but it seems to be doing something still. Yeah, it's progressing. This is the original manual that this came with. Just a foldout, but with a lot of text on it. No pictures though. This is a budget EPROM programmer, but it seems to still work after all those years. There are also re-implementations of this. Some people reverse engineered the circuit and put it on GitLab and GitHub and things like that. I'm going to link to that in the video description, so you can make your own EPROM programmers. This is not the best EPROM programmer there is for the C64. As I've said before, the Merlin EPROMMER and things like that are much more sophisticated and can do much more types of EPROMs. But this one was pretty popular, at least here in Germany. DELA was a well-known brand of accessories for the C64 and later also for the Amiga and things like that. And that they probably, I think they lasted until the mid-90s or something and basically went bankrupt around the same time that Commodore went bankrupt because they were focused on making Commodore peripherals and things. Yeah, it's half done maybe. Takes quite a long time, a few minutes. I'm going to report back. And we seem to be finished. It just returned to the main menu without any error message or anything like that. So I think we were successful. We can do a verify, which is Vergleiche EPROM Speicher with, yeah, let's do the 1000. It asks for the start address in memory again. And now it should do, yeah, probably verified the memory. It just returns to the menu and doesn't give me any other feedback. But yeah, seems to be a successful EPROM programming pass here. We should put it in the socket in the little kernel switcher and see if the thing with the 2 bytes actually made sense. I only read that in some forum, but yeah, possibly we have a JiffyDolphin kernel ROM here, made on the C64 with the means that we had in the 80s. That would be cool if that just worked first try, but yeah, you never know. I think I verified it, didn't give me any error messages. And now the question is if my file actually is the correct format, basically. That doesn't fit right. Oh no, I bent a pin. Carefully bend that back without it breaking. This is the whole experience. Okay, now it's sitting in there quite well, I think. Let's see if it actually boots up. Yeah, that didn't work. Doesn't start up. Ah, bummer. Yeah, I'm not sure what to do. Maybe we should read that EPROM and look at it. I'm just going to have a look at the contents of the EPROM with my modern EPROM programmer. Maybe this is a bit flaky. Maybe the EPROM is a bit flaky. It doesn't have much in terms of error correction and things like that, but it verified correctly. So I guess we used the wrong file maybe. So my modern EPROM programmer should be able to read what's on here. Device read. So there we are. That's actually looking good. And we don't have the 2 0 bytes at the start here. So that looks kind of hunky-dory. I can open the file that we used. JiffyDolphin should be what's on here, I think. Oh, that looks different. Yeah, the writing, the programming actually went right, but we didn't insert things. We just deleted the first 2 bytes with our hex editor. Yeah, so that is the whole problem here. Everything worked correctly. The EPROM programmer worked and things like that. But the hex editor I used didn't insert the 0 bytes, the 2 0 bytes that I wanted to insert. It just overwrote the first 2 bytes of the file. And that, of course, won't work. So I'm probably going to try to install the hex editor that is recommended by most people, which is HxC, I think is the name, and try again. That is supposed to be able to insert bytes into such files. That's a Windows program, that's why I didn't use it, because I'm running Linux here. HxD is the one, and we're going to install it in Wine, I think. Yeah, that works. Okay, let's try that again. We have to prepare our file again. JiffyDolphin. And now we should be able to insert something here. Edit. Insert bytes. Yeah, byte count 2 in decimal. And we are filling this with zeros. So let's see if the 85 from here just moves 2 bytes to the right. This operation changes the file size. Yes. Yep, that's what we needed. So now this should be the file. If we save it, JD2B2. This should be the file we need to program the EPROM successfully, which we kind of did. We just programmed it with the wrong file. Yeah, let's try this file. I'm going to put this on the 1541 Ultimate USB stick, and we're going to do the same stuff again that we did previously, and then maybe it works. Thankfully, I have exactly the same EPROM type twice. I hope this one is not broken. Otherwise, we are going to have to erase the one we just programmed. But yeah, we can just use the TL866, of course, but that would be cheating, so I'm not going to do that. I want to program this on the C64. So, same shenanigans again. Blank check 2764. Yep, seems to be good. Now we need to go into menu 2. Load program. To address $1000. 1000. It's hexadecimal. And that's JD2B2, I think. Okay, and now we should be able to program our EPROM again. That's 2764 with 12 volts programming voltage. And we use the normal mode. And we put 1000 as the start address. And we hit return because we want to program the whole EPROM. Programming fault. We're getting the whole experience. It didn't program correctly. So probably we're going to have to erase the other one and try that one again, maybe. I'm just going to erase a few EPROMs. This is taking longer than I anticipated, but you're getting the whole experience. So I'm going to have to erase these EPROMs again. Just going to get the EPROM eraser out, I guess. As I said, you're getting the whole experience. This is still waiting for some mods I have planned for it. So just going to let these toast for 20 minutes or so. And I'm going to have to set a timer because I removed the timer which was broken from this one in a previous video.
20 minutes later.
So maybe the EPROMs are erased now. I cooked them in UV light for 20 minutes, which usually is enough to erase them. So we're just going to try the same thing over again. And we have 5 EPROMs to try. Probably should be enough. If the EPROM programmer is not, maybe it kicked the bucket. It's an old device. So inserting the next EPROM. Put some contact cleaner into the user port and into the socket here in the meantime. Let's see if our blank check passes. That worked. Let's load in our program. Load program to address 1000. JD2B2. Program EPROM 2764. 12 volts. Normal mode 1000. And we want to program the full EPROM. And it seems to actually do something this time around. Okay, maybe, yeah, it's progressing. Maybe this time, third time is the charm, or fourth time. I lost count a bit. Yeah, you saw this before. I'm just going to skip forward to the results. If there are any. Fingers crossed. We're nearly there. And it should, if everything goes according to plan, it should return to the main menu any second now. There we are. Okay, let's verify. Yeah, okay, I have high hopes that this time it actually worked. Let's try. Yeah, should be in there. Oh man. Turning this to the high% basic position. And maybe we're going to see the JiffyDolphin startup screen, which is a rainbow startup screen. Fingers crossed. Yes, it actually worked. We made a kernel ROM for this C64 on this C64 with the help of this gadget from, I think, 1985, which, yeah, my dad used to make the other kernel ROMs for this. It worked! And of course, we don't have anything else connected here, so we don't have a lot of functionality other than the startup screen at the moment. But that tells me that the ROM works. I'm going to put a bit of electrical tape over the little UV erase window so it doesn't get erased accidentally. Took me long enough to actually make this, so I don't want to risk anything. That was a bit of a journey. So yeah, I'm going to protect the ROM and then we're going to look at the other EPROM programmer briefly, which basically can do the same, but it's a bit more elegant and can do more EPROM types, I think. Just a piece of electrical tape on here. And yeah, I don't think I have to label this in any other way. So yeah, we made a ROM. And that's actually one of my favorite ROMs to use on the C64 these days. So the Merlin programmer comes with the software on a cartridge, actually. That's how this came from the factory. I'm just going to hook both of these up. The EPROM programmer portion goes in the user port, as the other one does. Yeah, so let's try that. Okay, seems to work fine. This is the programmer portion, and it has 3 LEDs instead of the 1 LED that the other one had. And this just has a very simple startup menu here. Oh, there we go. 2764. Maybe let's blank check something. 2764. It says 21 volts here. 27C64 is what we have. Let's blank check one of our other EPROMs here. Just going to double check the orientation of the chip in the programmer. And the EPROMs go in the same orientation that they did on the other one. So with the notch of the chip, pin 1 facing towards the little lever there on the socket. So I have that inserted. I have selected my EPROM type 27C64. Let's see what the blank check does in this one. I actually like the color scheme of this quite a bit more. Looks a bit more hackery. And you can see all the EPROM types that this supports here. It's quite a few. Oh, there we go. Prom, read prom, load disk, prom, blank check, B. No faults. So this one has a bit of feedback. Yeah, both of these programs can actually, they have a module generator, so you can put several programs, basic programs, just regular C64 programs, on an EPROM that you can run from a cartridge. These companies, Merlin as well as DELA, also offered cartridge circuit boards that you could use. My father had some of those and made some cartridges generated with these module generators. The DELA thing is a very similar thing. Yeah, and this is the capacity and where the program is located in memory, the end of the burning process, the EPROM start address, and there are different algorithms. Yeah, basically the same, just a kind of a neater layout. And this can do more EPROM types than the other one. But yeah, I'm not going to try to program another EPROM because I'm a bit exhausted from the first experience of doing that on the C64. But this one appears to work just fine. It's now showing just the green LED, no power going to the EPROM, and when I execute a command, the red LED lights up. That means there's power going to the EPROM actually. Yeah, very cool. Thanks, Eve, for sending this many moons ago. And I'm sorry I'm just able to show this now, but it makes sense in this context. If you want to see me using this one, leave a comment below. Maybe I'm going to make another EPROM programmer video eventually. We are going to take a closer look at the circuit board, I guess, because that looks pretty sophisticated on this one. I think this is a way better design than the other one, way more versatile. It has a little switch here that says high and low, H and L. And you can actually use this to program larger EPROMs, 27512 EPROMs. You can program the banks individually by using this. I think there was a previous model of this. This is version 1.3. There was a previous version that didn't have this, and you had to bridge some pins or something to achieve that. There is also a kit that you could buy for this one, for the DELA EPROMMER, that enables it to read and write 27512 EPROMs. So the larger EPROM types were possible on both of these. But this one I think has better voltage regulation. The DELA one only has a 7805 for providing the 5 volts. And yeah, this one I think has a switching power supply type thing going on here. At least there's some kind of coil here. And a bunch of logic chips, of course, some rectification diodes, and yeah, way more sophisticated than the DELA one, but both of these supposedly work fine. Maybe I'm going to go back to this and revisit it and burn some EPROMs with this. This was fun enough for now, I guess. Yeah, in the end I achieved what I wanted to achieve, making a ROM for this C64 on the C64 itself, with some modern help. I wouldn't have gotten here without that. But I think it would be possible to find a machine language monitor that you could insert 2 bytes on top of a file on the C64. Just never tried that. That's not a function you usually need on a system. But yeah, the HxD Hex Editor for Windows does that. And it runs fine in Wine on Linux, it seems. So yeah, that's the way to do it if you have access to a modern system, which you probably do if you're watching this video. Yeah, super happy with the result. I'm going to treasure this machine and I hope it keeps working for a long time. I did what I can to future-proof it and to make it useful for me. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this little excursion into the world of EPROM programming like we did it back in the day. Thank you so much for your time. Special thanks, as always, to everybody who supports me on Patreon or on Ko-fi or on the YouTube channel memberships page or elsewhere. The links to that are on my website and in the video description down below. That's it for today. I'm Jan Beta. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.